I want to welcome everybody to today's webinar. We're going to be looking at a crash course on creating infographics for Canvas in your course. And I am Dr. Sean Nufer, the Director of Educational Technology. And this will be an informative webinar. We're going to talk about what infographics are and some of the good tools that are out there that are free or paid to put imagery into your classroom. Now, a lot of these platforms are free with options to upgrade. In fact, I think all of them have that option. I'm going to look at primarily the free versions that you can sign up for with your email account, and I'm going to show one the paid version, what that's capable of. So I will get out of this. So I have a Canvas course that I created with infographics. And so this is Canvas. This would be a page within Canvas, and I have some data here, and I just made up this data. It doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't come from anywhere, but I'm looking at this data of my students, my hypothetical students. Suppose I just, and this could be any data. It doesn't have to be student data. But I'm looking at, okay, of all of my students in my program, how many are first year students, second year, third, fourth, fifth year students, assuming I'm maybe in a graduate program. And then these are the numbers, 33, 25, 20. So it dwindles as people graduate and move on. I also have, and this I want to make into a pie chart, probably. I think since it's percentages of a whole that equal 100%, then it seems like that would be appropriate as a pie chart. And I have some data down here that is more longitudinal. So looking at the past 4 years, I have A and B, and I don't know what that means, type A versus type B, or, it doesn't really, put your own labels there. But I want to track this group versus this group. And I have the scores for the last 4 years. And so I want to track that trending data in a line graph. And then I put out a survey question. The statement is, the holidays are great. Do you agree or disagree with this? So it's on a scale of bah humbug to it's the most wonderful time of the year. And I collected responses there, and I have those here. So I want to have a fun way to present that information as well. And then getting to know my students. I say, where are my students from? Are they local, right where my campus is pretty much, or the greater area? Are they the same state? In state, or are they out of state? I put remote there, but out of state, not in the state where I am teaching. So here's my data. It looks horrible. This is just a very bad way to present the data. Obviously, I'm just worried about the numbers now. And so I'm going to look at a few programs for presenting this data. Let me hop over to here. And I was tinkering around. I think that of all of the infographic software that I'll show you, each one really has merit, and they have major drawbacks and major benefits. And so I can't say that there's one size fits all. I have my preference, which I will show you. And I think that there are some that have severe limitations, but they might be good for certain projects. And so let me pull this over here. On this page, I created some infographics already to show you, and I'll show you the back end of what that looks like. But I also am going to tinker around and experiment with you live. So the first one is Piktochart. Piktochart is it's a WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get editor. So it's a lot of drag and drop, and a lot of these platforms you'll find are drag and drop. And I know the aesthetics aren't great. They do have templates that you can build off of, and I recommend that, but I did all of these templates from scratch, which means artistically there's a lot lacking. And so ignore the aesthetics, even though we're talking about infographics. So here's that data, how I presented that data. I have a pie chart here. And since I embedded this from Piktochart, and I was crossing my fingers because Piktochart earlier this morning was having server issues, but it looks like it's resolved. So I can see that some of these are embeddable, and that's good because they can be interactive. It's not just a static image. And also, if you update the information on the back end, then it will update on your Canvas page as well. So there's some benefit to that. You can see as I hover over, there's a few animations. As I hover over some of these values in the legend, then it highlights it up here. And as I scroll over there. So that's my demographic pie chart. And then I'm tracking A versus B, and I can see there's an intercept that took place sometime between 2017 and 2018. And again, this data doesn't mean anything at all. I was able to put the minimum Y value at 25 and the max at 80, which, there's some drawbacks and benefits to that too. It really focuses in on the section that I'm interested in, but it also, if you have any stats background, that can also be spurious because it's not on a 0 to 100 scale. So it looks like in 2015, Group B was very low, when in reality they were 35. They're up there a little, about a third of the way up when you can't factor in 100%. And then there's an intercept. And on this picto chart, I can determine these dots. Do I want there to be dots, or do I want it just to be lines? Do I want the lines to be curved? And as I hover over the legend, then it highlights there as well. The holidays are great. This isn't the chart that I wanted, but with PictoChart, this seems to be the best fit, which is a histogram that's put on its side. And I can see the students who said bah humbug, neutral, most wonderful time of the year. And the platform called Visme actually has the best interaction for this type of thing. But if you're looking for a histogram, all of them have histograms, line charts, and pie charts. So lastly, I was asking, where are your students from? In this case, I decided to put it as a progress bar, which I don't know that this was really the wisest choice, but it kind of looks like a progress bar from 50 to 100. But in reality, in order for one progress bar to go up, other progress bars would have to go down. And so you can, instead of a progress bar, you can think of this as percentage of a whole, I guess. But there are, a few different ways. So this was done in PictoChart. I put a background image, which I had as just, lines. And you can determine the font colors, the sizes. So PictoChart is PIKT, Picto, T-O, chart.com. And let me hop back here. This is the back end of what that infographic looks like. And a lot of these are drag and drop. This is a group. It's a title group, but I think I can ungroup those, and I can change portions of it without changing other portions. I can lock things in so that I can't move them. Once something's in a permanent home, then you can do that. The graphics, or the graphs there is called charts, and you have various charts to choose from. You have vertical bars, basically a histogram with triangles, a horizontal bar graph, line graphs, area graphs and dots, pie charts, Venn diagrams. Now, it's kind of, you take what they give you. With PictoChart, it's very simple, it's very easy, and this was perhaps one of the easier data spreadsheets for me to work with. But you don't have a lot of customization is the problem. That's where that ends. So let me go ahead and take this pie chart that I made, and I can edit that, and you can see it's very simple. I just put first through fifth year on the side, and then I put the values right there. You can determine the individual colors if you want. You can determine your own colors. If you have a hex code, then you can set those colors. I can put the title on the top or the bottom. You can see very, very few settings that you can adjust. And so this is pretty much for if it's simple data and you want to present it simply in kind of a fun way, then you can do that. You can change the colors of the title and the text to some degree, gray, black, or white, whichever you want. Dynamic data, I didn't really look into, but it's basically a very simple spreadsheet and then a few options, not many options though. If I change the chart type, Then I might have a few more options. I could put a max or a min on the y-axis. I can take the axis off entirely if I want, or I can put a grid behind it. I can stack them. Perhaps I mean that's a fun interaction too for some settings. I'll go ahead and cancel that out. For the line chart, it was basically I put in the years. I have two groups, Group A and Group B, and then the values. And then my options are very simple as well. And I did that for the other two groups as well. Now, if I wanted to extend this a little bit, I would actually grab down here and I can pull it down. Oops. And then I can add more charts, more maps. I have graphics if I want to put basic shapes or lines or pictures. I have photo frames. I can upload if there's an image that I want, then I can upload it. With the free account, you have 40 megabytes, and so you'd really want to optimize your images. You don't want to put big images up there. And then for text, you have titles, subtitles, body text, all the way up. I recommend if you're creating an infographic, then make sure that the minimum font is 20 points, and that would be for the body. For the if you have headings, then you'd want that to be even bigger, 30 at least, I would say. But you have a lot of different text frames, a lot of different styles here. Let me scroll down to somewhere here. Let's find one that might be interesting. Here's a kind of a fun one, your headline. All right, so I can move this around, and I have very basic what do you call it? Rich text editing capabilities, basically bold, italicized, underline. I recommend don't underline things and steer clear of italics in general. If you want to emphasize a word, bold is really aesthetically the proper way to do it these days. Underline makes people think like there's a hyperlink when there might not be a hyperlink. You can determine this letter spacing, the kerning, very basic settings. And now if I were to save this, I know that looks bad, but let me save it and hop back over to the Canvas page. Then you can see that added the section that I inserted there without me having to really make any changes on the Canvas end. All I did is refresh the page. Sometimes it'll include it without you having to refresh. So that's Pictochart. Pictochart is it's very interesting, very intuitive, but and they make it very easy for you, but you don't have a lot of control and over the creativity and certain aspects of it. Canva is the next one that we're going to look at, and there's a hyperlink here. Also, let me put this in the chat window. If you have questions at any time, go ahead and put your questions in the box and go to webinar. But you should be able to access this. It's not very pretty. I know infographics are supposed to be pretty. I kind of didn't make mine too pretty, but so Canva, I'll start off with a limitation of Canva. I think it's a fantastic platform for certain things. For infographics, you can make an infographic with Canva, and so I do want to showcase it, but I don't think that it's the best infographic platform. I think it's very, very good for making banners and making images that are static as opposed to dynamic. The difference between static and dynamic is you can see this is dynamic where it's interactive. I can hover over parts of the thing and I can make changes on the back end. It'll push those changes out. And so it's not just a static image that never changes. It actually changes as you interact with it. Canva is better for static images. So you would create something and you would save it, you would download it, upload it into Canvas, and that's where it would live. And it would be a permanent thing until you replace it. You would have to re-upload something in its place. I'm going to back out here. So this is my infographic. I have my students. I have my pie chart. I have my line graph. I have this this image here. This is the holidays are great. The percentage of people who disagree versus agree with it. I made that a little bit colorful. Where do your students come from? I have a graphic right there. So let's look on the back end of what that looks like. They actually do, Canva makes pages for the infographics. And so what we're looking at here is actually two different pages, or two different images. This would be page 1, and then at the bottom here is page 2. And as I drag it out, you can see what that entails. And so I had to download it, export it as a PNG, which is a image file, and then upload the images into Canvas, which I don't think is optimal. If you never need to make changes, then that could work. Now Canva, you can see a lot of templates there. It seems like this platform is best for very informative text-laden creations, as opposed to, I mean, that's not to say that there isn't graphic components, because there are, but you could start out with one of these and just replace the images and the text with your own images and text. For this project, I was very graphic, or graph, it's very graph laden. And so I didn't think that Canva was the best platform for that, but I can show you some of these images. So let me bump this up. I'm going to put that at maybe 75% and edit this. Now, there is not a more simple interface than Canva. And so if your data is simple and you don't need to do a lot of tinkering or creative alterations of the settings, then Canva really is the best of the best. It's a very basic spreadsheet that I have here. I put in first, second, third year and the numbers, and there's not a whole lot more that I can edit, really. I can change the colors around a little bit. I can change the color schemes. I can change the font size. And so I mentioned I don't think anything should be below 20. So let me make sure that's well above. I think 24 might be good. I could change the fonts. I could bold the text here. And as I bold that, it goes off the screen. So I'll have to adjust that a little bit. I can change the position so that it's in front or behind certain things. Let me put it not in the middle, but in the center. I can make it a little bit more transparent, which is actually what I did with this graphic right here, this cap. I changed the transparency and put it behind the students so that it would hide and it would give enough contrast. But you can see that's not a lot of modification that I'm allowed to do. Here's the line graph. I have the years, I have the variables, I have group A and group B, and that's it in terms of entering the data. And one thing I didn't like about this, though, is that it automatically adjusts the y-axis, and maybe I'd like to start the y-axis at 25, just because there's a lot of space down there, and maybe I don't like that, but there's actually no way that I found that you can make that modification. I can copy it, I can position it, I can hyperlink it to something, I can change some of the variables, like I can bump that up to 20 maybe, and that's it. I can change the colors of those lines. So maybe I want this, instead of blue and off blue, I'll put something like blue and red to really make it jump out. So for this graph, I had to be a little bit creative. So it's basically a row chart. I only have a few different types of charts to choose from. I have a bar histogram. I have the row, the horizontal histogram, a line chart and a pie chart, which you already saw, and a donut chart, which is basically a pie chart with a hole in it. Somebody can educate me. I don't know why donut charts exist, but maybe they're useful somehow. So what I did was I put a row chart and I just put values in 30, 10, 60, and then because there's not a whole lot that I couldn't get the chart exactly how I wanted, how I had it in my head using their settings. So I put my own title and I put my own labels. These are just basically text boxes that I have down there. And then the only thing I can change are the colors and the size of that font, which I don't even want those labels on there, to be honest, but they're there. So it's very simple. And if you're comfortable working with text boxes, basically putting, your own font, then that's a possibility. Here's a histogram, which This was, where do your students come from? Are they local? Are they same state, remote? Let's bump that up to 24. I couldn't even figure out how to change the different colors of the histogram. So it's a very simple setup there. And so this is easy to learn, but there's just not a lot of creativity. Now I'll say, as a side note, Canva, where it really excels, I'll go ahead and back out of this, is creating banners. And it's a very artistic platform. If you don't want to work with Photoshop, or if you don't have Photoshop, then this is web-based and it's very good. And you can create flyers, posters, banners for your classes. And they walk you through. They even have a design school where it gives you lessons on how to be artistic for things. You can make an infographic with Canva. I can't quite endorse it because of the limitations that I showed you before. But I want you to know that it is a tool that's free and it's available for you. And if you're willing to have graphs that are more simple, then it might be actually pretty good for you. And again, this is what it looks like within Canvas. The next one that I will show you is Infogram. Infogram is how it sounds, infogram.com. You can sign up for a free account. And so this is the what I came up with the data in Infogram. Now, Infogram has, of all of these are simple platforms, but Infogram probably gives you the most access to customization of the data on the back end of all of these. Now, one thing that I should do, I didn't quite look it into. I should have some kind of background. All I have is white on the back, but no, you can probably put an image in the back and make it a little more appealing, I would say. And they do have a lot of what do you call it, templates that you can start from. So as I say, let's see, if I want to start an infographic, and all of these platforms have good templates. I think that the Infogram templates are definitely worth looking at. I think that they're stylistic, but they're also minimalistic, and they just have good appeal. And so you can start with one of these. You can use this for a resume, for disseminating information, whichever. So, but I didn't do anything fancy. I just started with a blank slate. So shame on me for not, being as artistic as I could. Now, as I click on this, I have my data right here. So 1st through 5th year, and I have my numbers. I can modify the colors by clicking on the color right here, and I can either get a hex code and come up with my own color, or I can find a color. I can kind of tinker, with this. I'm going a little like Easter kind of spring colors there, I suppose. Now, as I head over to settings, so I have my data right here, and then my settings. There are a lot more settings than what we've seen with Canva and with PictoChart. I can customize the width and the height. I can rotate the graph. I have certain chart properties. So these are callouts right here. The 1st year callout, I can hide those callouts and just have the pie chart speak for itself. And as you hover over, then you can see the variables. Or if you hover over in the legend there, then you can see those variables as well. So since we have all that functionality, I would say let me hide the callouts, I guess. Callout percentage, since there's no callouts, then that doesn't really matter. I can change the color schemes here. I have different fonts. Let me increase that font size. It doesn't actually tell me what the font size is, but let me just kind of eyeball it and make sure that it's big enough. The legend, do I want the legend? Yeah, since I don't have callouts, I definitely want to have that legend there. Formatting the data, I have some more options right there. Let's jump to this other graph right here. So this is the line graph, and it's interactive as well. And as I hover over the legend, the values down there, then it highlights that as well. I had a little bit of a hard time understanding their rationale for having these. You have a y-axis, but then you have like a y prime. I don't know what to call that on the right side with odd values, and I didn't really appreciate that so much. But I can show the points, or I can hide the points. I can smooth out those curves so that they're a little bit more rounded. Change the colors. I wanted green and red for one. Those are festive colors, but also they have a lot of contrast, so they don't really blend into each other. You can change the transparency of the grid, which is the grid sits behind it, so I can make that a little more transparent and really focuses on over there. So tilt y-axis labels, y-axis intervals. Do I want that every 10? I think every 10 might be excessive. Let me bump that up to every 20. Oh boy, that did not do. Oh, that's saying how many intervals do you want? I was thinking that was tick marks of 20. My apologies. Let's say 5. Yeah, okay, so 5 for 80, that gives me a few. I think that's good. Axis labels. See, I don't even know. I guess I can hide I wouldn't want to hide those, but let me show on the Y only, I guess. No, because I'd want Y and X, because this is longitudinal, so I want to see the years. So I'm just kind of playing around with the various settings. Here, let me change the Y minimum to maybe 30 or 25. Which is odd. I don't know. This is being kind of funny. I would need to tinker around. Again, there's a lot of options, which in some ways that can be overwhelming just because there's a lot of stuff going on there. So for this next graph, I did something interesting, since Infogram has a setting that I think is unique to the other things, and I really like this. It's a tabbed interaction with graphs. And so I know I had my data, but I decided to kind of change that data a bit. Oh, it didn't save my changes. All right, let me tinker around with this a little bit more. So then maybe 20. Oops. 20. I had made these changes. I don't know why I didn't save. And 5 and 15. Okay, so what this is a tabbed interaction, and it's a graphical representation of the responses, but it's also tabbed, and so that I can see year by year. In this case, I'm looking at the bah humbugs. Let me change that. I think it makes more sense to have bah humbug be red. I don't know why. And most wonderful time of the year be green. And so we can see year by year the bah humbugs are diminishing, the representation there, and then the most wonderful time of the year responses year after year are growing. And so Infogram, it might even be worth its weight just for this. If you were to not even make a long infographic with lots of data, but only have one graph that's interactive that you can embed into Canvas, it might be worth it to look into this platform just for this, to have interactivity to this extent. And that's where Infogram really excels. I think it's more interactive than really any other platform in terms of this kind of capability. So for the last one, I said, where do your students come from? I want to kind of minimize that. I think that was really thick, and it was just really tall. Let me kind of make it more reasonable, I think. Excuse me. So most of them are local. I can see there's a lot of in-state and then a few remote. So it's just the graphical image. Now, reiterating, what that looked like was this in table format. And also the holidays are great, look like this in table format. That's the data, and there's nothing to take away from that. Data speaks for itself. But this is a much more graphic way to present that same information, and worth exploring. So what that data looks like, I just put local, in-state, remote, and then the numbers right underneath it. And it's a histogram, it's a bar chart that's vertical, and it's stacked on top of each other. And so it's just one row. If I were to have 2 rows, if I were to have data underneath that, that would add a different row. And then the settings, various settings, it's basically the same thing that we've been looking at. So what I would do to get this into Canvas is I would click Share, I would save it, make it public, click Share, and I'm looking for an embed code. You're sometimes going to have options, responsive. What you need is fixed embed code. So it's basically a certain height and a certain width, and you would copy this. And so let me scroll down and we'll look at what this looks like. Now I already have Infogram there, so I'm going to delete that real quick. Oh, sorry, I'm going to get behind the scenes a little bit easier for me here. Div. And I'm going to put a bunch of Z's so that I can see where exactly I want that. And I'll find those Z's right here. Okay, so I'll go ahead and delete those Z's. I'm going to put my cursor right where I want it. So this is Infogram. This is where I want that infographic. I'm going to click Insert, Edit Media, grab the Embed tab right here, and I'm just going to paste the code that I got from up there. Click OK, and here is my infographic. So Pictochart and Infogram are interactive, and that I embed them so it has all of this interactivity. That's pretty fun. And when I make changes on the back end, it changes real life. Canva, I wasn't able to get the same embed effects. Canva is more of a static image, so these are just images. If any of these values were to change, I would have to resave it, re-download it from Canva, and re-upload it into Canvas, which is unfortunate. And then here's Infogram. This is the one that we just tinkered with. And so you can see this is also interactive, kind of like Pictochart. And you can see that interactivity. This line graph, I wasn't able to get this exactly how I want. I'm sure the settings, I can tinker with it a little bit more, but it kind of shows you that the learning curve for Infogram is a little bit steeper, but once you figure it out, it's probably a superior tool than Pictochart, to be honest, and Canva. It gives you a lot more abilities to customize the settings than Canva. And you can see that interactivity. And then here is that tabbed interaction that I like so much. I just think this is so, I think it's very clever and pretty useful. And then here's the last thing, and I can hover over. Now, since Infogram, it's a free account and I didn't pay for it, it's going to have some branding at the bottom down here. And there's a little bit of space as well. I can bring that up a little bit, and that should bring it back up. I might need to refresh the page a little bit, but that would bring that so there's not so much white space right there. If you were to pay for the account, then you can get rid of some of this branding, I think. And there's shared embed codes and links. So that's Infogram. I'm going to look at another one. I'm going to hop back, which is called Visme. Now, Visme is probably my favorite infographic platform. As much as I kind of spoke bad about Canva, Canva is maybe my favorite graphic program, but specifically for infographics, I think Visme is probably the best. It's intuitive. It's very easy to use, but it gives you enough customizability to make you really comfortable with it. And so all around, I think it's great. So what I'm going to do something different now. I preloaded the other platforms with data, and this time I want to build this out with you. So I'll show you. So I'm going to copy this data first, and just for simplicity, I'm going to start closing some of these out since we've already touched on those. Now I'll add a title, There are various headings and text that you can choose from. So I can say, let's see, what's one of these that kind of jumps out to me. Yeah, maybe this one. So I will say this is my student data for the year 2018. So that's my heading. If I wanted to put something behind there, then I could put, I don't know, maybe a, not a shape, put a banner or a line, maybe a line, something like this. I'll change the color to, I don't have my palettes on my other, I'll just keep that color. I'm going to put this right up behind there, and I'll change the height to maybe, I don't know, 300. Oh no, that's not what I wanted. Oh, I thought I could make that bold. All right, I'll put that right underneath. I can change the color to green or one of these colors here. Maybe something like that. Put that under my title. Okay, so I have my data, which is first year. So that's going to be a pie chart. And so let's look at data here and look at the different charts. And I am going to select pie chart right here, and I'll go ahead and copy that down. Now let me copy it right here. I'm gonna back out. No, I want something new. Oh. All right, sample data 1. Let's see how we do this. It looks like I would go first year, second, third, fourth, and fifth years, and those numbers are 33, 25, 20, 15, 7. All right, go ahead and delete these guys out. I'm going to call this series 1, probably not. All right, so now I have my settings. I'm going to say no to titles. I mean, you should have titles and when you do things, but I'm just going to have no titles there. I have, let's see, backgrounds. Do I want to show values? Now, do I want to show percentages? Perhaps. What color should that be? Maybe something really light. What's the font? Maybe 20%. Show caption on hover, on or off. Yeah, sure. And do I want it to be percentage? Yeah, by default, it already is. But yeah, I can change some of these settings here. Do I want the legend on or off? I want it on so that people can see, obviously. Legend position, do I want it top, left, right, bottom? Do I want to align it? Do I want to fill it? What should the font size be for the legend? At least 20, I would say. Maybe even more. Do I want to show that animation or take it off? The animation, it can be a little, I'll keep it on just so that we can see it, but it can be a little cumbersome as well. So I will insert that. I need this block to be a little bit bigger, so I'm just going to drag it down. And I'll have something like that. Now I'm starting my block. This is kind of like Pictochart in that it works in blocks and then it just combines the blocks. I can add a block below it by clicking add a block here, blank or from template, or I can click below there, or I can just keep extending this. But if you have different sections of the infographic, it might make sense to organize it that way. So if I were to choose add a block from template, then I have I have templates to choose from, and they're very good templates. I'm just going to add a blank block though, and I will put my other data. Let's look at this other data. This was a line graph. So let's hop over to line graph, look at the data. I'm going to copy that right here. Actually, that looks good, so I'm just going to copy that right there. All right, so we got group A and group B, and it automatically optimizes it. Now, this could be good or bad. It puts the minimum at 30, the maximum at 80. If you're interested in 0 to 100, so that it's a more accurate reflection of where they are, then you just go to the settings and you can change that there. So I can show axis. Again, I'm going to take off the titles, but you probably want a title on your graph because that's good practice. Show axes. Yes or no. Probably I do want to show the axes. Minimum value, if I wanted that to be something different than 30, the default, then I can change that maybe to 25, for example. I have the legend, the stack, animation. Now it's bouncing. I'm going to change the animation to something a little smoother. I don't like all that bouncing stuff. I should have done that with the other one as well. I can show you values, hover on the values. That doesn't show up very well, so I'm going to say no for that. The craft type, do you want a smooth line? I would say no. That makes it kind of look like an S shape. I'm just going to say show me lines. That's how I like looking at data. You can also have steps. I think that's not accurate. I think lines would be the best. So let me insert that. All right, looks like I need to extend this block a touch. But then this block, I can actually minimize that by a touch. So I'm just looking at that. Now, if I want to put a different graph on the same block, I just extend the block that way. So let's hop over. The holidays are great is our next data. So let's create a pie chart. I don't know maybe what NRA would be interesting. So let's put this would be the Bah Humbug. I'm going to put that as red. And what was that number? We're looking at 30, 10, 60. So I'm going to put 30, 10, and that doesn't need to be a woman necessarily. What's something that's neutral? I'm just going to glance. Oh, crumb. I'm going to make all of those that icon, actually. Maybe this is the one that I would need. Avatar, I'll put it as that. And I don't know, maybe. I know it's not. I know the holidays aren't always about Christmas necessarily, but you know, there's something. I'll change the color to something a little more. It can't be that neutral because then it doesn't show up. But yeah, maybe something like that. Random order. I don't even know what that means. Okay, that's interesting. It just shuffles everything up. I would think probably no. And then we have to change this to 60. So number per row, 5 isn't doing that. I'm going to say something like maybe 15. And then let me just bump this up a little bit. Get out of here, settings. All right, let me hop over here. The holidays are great. I'm going to put in that title because I don't think that, yeah, it doesn't look like we really have a title for this. It's just self-explanatory, but I want to make sure that we have something. So I'm going to look for header and text. something kind of simple. Where did it put it? Put it at the top for some reason. And I will replace this with the holidays are great. And maybe I can explain down here. Yeah, because there's no... I don't know, scale from bah humbug to the most wonderful time of the year. Yeah, that's not a very good... You need to be more descriptive than that, have a legend and stuff, but you know, we get the point. So I wanted to do... Let's do one more. Where are your students coming from? I'll add another block, I suppose. So I'm going to look at charts, and I am going to look at probably this chart. I'm going to copy. It didn't really paste over very well. But local, in-state, and remote, we are looking at 50, 30, 20. Actually, okay, so what I would do is I would put local, in-state, and remote. Let me just delete those guys here. And we were looking at 50, 30, and 20. Oh, and I'll just delete that. Okay, so now we have a bar graph that way. And we can look at the settings, bump the titles up to 20. Insert that. I'll just extend the block a little bit, drag that down. I don't know why it does that. It wouldn't extend the block automatically, but I guess, I don't know. Maybe people wanted a certain fixed height and width. All right, so that's how we would show that data. You can also stack those if you wanted. So I could have this as a histogram like this, maybe a pie chart. It's not right, but or we can have 3D effects. All right, so now we have our infographic. If I wanted, now let me see. They also have kind of fun interactions here. So some set graphs that are different than the ones that we looked at with text. So I could put some of these in. For example, here I'll add a few of those. Oh, it looks like it's a premium feature, so it's going to watermark it unless you give them a little bit of money. And if I remember right, I think with our educator discounts a year, I think $100 for a year. Well, I can look that up right now. The plans, let's see, yearly. I think the standard is very good. You can have 15 projects, some storage, all of the premium assets and templates. No branding, the Visme brand. You can download as PDFs. So that's a very good plan. And I feel like it comes to 100. I mean, 100 and some dollars for the year. So let's look at sharing this then. I'll go ahead and save it. I think it saves automatically. I can embed this. I have to publish it to the web first. I'm going to get a fixed width. I'll copy this code over. And let's hop over. Oh, I need to edit this page. We are going to hop over to Visme, the Visme platform. right here. Let me give ourselves a little more room to work with. All right, I have a placeholder right there. I'm going to go Insert Media, Embed, paste the embed code right there, and click OK. And there I can see Visme. I'll go ahead and save this. All right, so just an overview. I know I always said we talk about 5 platforms, and I won't be able to touch on the last 2. The last 2 are called Easily, and the hyperlinks are in the course there, and Venage, and they have a lot of the same functionality. They're very generic, very much like Visme and like Pictochart, easy to figure out. So feel free to tinker with those as well. They're free to try out. And if you want some of the premium features for any of these, it's the same thing. You pay a little bit of money and you can get the free ones. Okay, so we were looking at Visme. Here's the Visme infographic. And you can see just like Pictochart and like Infogram, it's interactive to a degree. You hover over elements and you can get the values. So in this case, it's telling me 2015, the value was 75, 2016, the value was 66, 2018, the value was 55, or I can hover over and toggle some of these on and off. Here is this holidays are great. All the bah humbugs and the neutrals and the most wonderful time of the years are right there. And those are raw values. And so I think I put like 30 and 10 and 60. And so those are actually 30, 10, and 60 icons there. So it's kind of like a accurate representation, as opposed to if I hop down over to what Infogram was doing, it puts a proportion. So the value of bah humbugs was 75, 10. Obviously, this is more than 70, more than 10, more than 20, but it fills in kind of like a pie chart would, proportionally. All right, so hopping over here, we have our bar charts. We have some of these other interactions that I was tinkering with, and that's Visme. It's branded because I have the free version right here. I can increase the size as well and look at this full screen. So that can be effective as well. And so to embed the charts into Canvas, you would either download it as a PNG or a PDF or JPEG and upload the image, or look for embed code somehow, which would be a shareable thing, embed. If they give you an option of responsive versus fixed width, you need to go with fixed width because that works within Canvas. The responsive code uses JavaScript that Canvas doesn't allow, and so it'll break and nothing will show on the infographic. And what responsive is that if I were to, if you were to minimize the window or change the window, it automatically adjusts to fix to that width, as opposed to this is a fixed width right here, what we're looking at. And so you can see it goes off the screen, which isn't ideal, but it's what we have to work with in Canvas. So go with the fixed width, copy that, and insert it into Canvas using the insert embed code button, which is right here. Let me bump this up. I apologize, it's a little bit small. You click on insert or edit media, and you can put the embed code in the embed tab and paste it and click OK. And then the infographic will be embedded right there. In order to upload an infographic, which is what I had to do with this one here with Canva, I went over to images, place the cursor where you want it. In fact, I'll go ahead and undelete that. Place images, you would upload a new image and choose it from your file. Since I have already uploaded it, I'll just click on the image right there, and then it inserts it into Canvas. And that is what I have to show you. I know there's a couple of questions. Do you know if all of them provide educational discounts? A lot of them provide educational discounts. All of them have free accounts that you can sign up for, whether it's Gmail or an EDU email address. You can sign up for free accounts. Some of them do have educational discounts if you were to subscribe to the paid version, and some of them actually give you you can sign up with your educational email for an account that's a little bit above the basic account. Not super premium, but it has more functionality than if you were to use a Gmail account. So when in doubt, look at the pricing plan, look at the different options and plans, and see if there's something for educators out there. I want to thank everybody who made it out to our webinar, and hopefully learn something. If you have any feedback for me, then I'd definitely love to hear it. And I will see you next time.